myself several times suggested to some of the individuals that I know that are former heads of states and government to come in as the elder statesmen and women of Africa and have an all-Congolese conference during which all the combatants would be involved and they decide how to govern Congo and how to ensure that there is sustainable peace in Congo. Easier said than done, but necessary and urgent. Not easy. Because when your government is in Kinshasa and you are talking about a country which is the size of Western Europe, the infrastructure is poor, you cannot be in effective control of the country. So the president can say what he is saying in Kinshasa, but the people in Goma can ignore him. The people in Katanga can ignore him because the territory is so big, the people are so divided, the interests are so diverse that it will take a combined effort of all Africans of goodwill to give them the ability to deal with the problem as it is. As it is now, it is not possible. They just don't have the resources, they don't have the personnel, and they don't have the, in my view, even the ability to pacify Congo if it is left to them. It's one that is not desirable at all. It is an undesirable conflict, but it would be a conflict that would bring in quite a number of neighbors if such a conflict were to take place. And let people not be cheated. And President Kagame has been on record as saying that we don't want any conflict, but if it is brought on us, then we are going to defend ourselves to the last person. And that is exactly what is going to happen. The assumption that Rwanda is a little country that you can overwhelm in a few days is completely misguided. And I hope that the administration in Kinshasa remains conscious of this, that Africa does not need a conflict of that nature. As I've already indicated, there are over 120 armed groups in that area, all of which have different commands. So what you'd be bringing forth if there was a conflict of that kind would be chaos. It would be hell on earth. People would create an environment where they will just control little fiefdoms, where they mine and engage in illicit trade, which is completely undesirable. And remember that there are people within these territories who also would be acting at the behest of foreign powers. And I'm happy to hear that President Tshisekedi has now said that he is prepared to meet President Kagame. There was a time when he said he was not going to meet President Kagame, but wisdom is going to prevail. And I hope that in the next few weeks, there will be such a meeting between President Tshisekedi and President Paul Kagame, and that the tension would be eased, and that we would have rapprochement, and we would have a peaceful resolution to all the issues that are outstanding, if any, between Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda. If I were to set out the agenda for President Tshisekedi and President Kagame, I would say, number one, let us discuss good neighborliness, let us discuss peace, and let us discuss the fate of the Congolese who are being said to be Rwandese. Recognize them as Congolese and give them their right to stay in peace in Congo. And once you've done that, let us then disarm all the combatants and let them be integrated in the forces of Congo, either through in the military or through policing. And let us have a joint commission which will monitor the situation between Congo and Rwanda at the border. Once you do that, then I believe that the other issues can then be discussed and discussed effectively. It's a combination of both. You cannot ignore when a mosquito is biting an elephant, the elephant must be concerned both about the mosquito and the pack of lions that want to attack. So the internal fighters would be the mosquito, but they are very irritating and very dangerous, and they can ensure that you can't even operate. The pack of lions are the foreign powers, and they come under different guises. They come under European Union, Chinese, and all they want are the resources. They'll give you a pittance, and they think and make you believe that you are being taken care of. So I think it must be a multi-track approach. Enter into arrangements with those foreign powers that are mutually beneficial, so that if the Congolese want to engage with the European Union or the Americans or the Turks or the Russians, it must be on the basis of mutual benefit. And internally, you must also create an environment that is going to ensure that trade can be undertaken in a proper manner, so that you don't have conflicts which undermine the environment and poison the environment in which you want trade to be undertaken. So that can be done. These are things that can be done simultaneously, and I believe that a government that is convicted, a government that is clear in what its mandate is and what its goals are, can achieve all these. It has been done before, and I see no reason why it cannot be done in the Congolese situation, the complexities and the history notwithstanding. Chad must be understood in the context of the history of the former French colonies. In 1958, when Charles de Gaulle became the president of France, and the wave of independence has started, he allowed the former French colonies to vote either yes or no, to remain within the effective control of France by voting yes or voting no, and gain independence and be outside of the control of France. And of course, Guinea and Algeria were quite clear and took a clear decision. When therefore Chad regained independence under the leadership of Francois Tombalbaye, it was a new beginning, but French dominance was still alive and well. And I remember at one time during the 1970s, when there was the desire, early 70s, to move away from colonial names and other things, Francois Tombalbaye became Ngata Tombalbaye. But he was an erratic character, and his dalliance with the French, of course, did not last long, and in 1975 he was overthrown. But that did not take away the fact that the French were still in control. So that when the Balbaye government is overthrown and Felix Malum comes in, the French are once again firmly in control. And later, of course, when Felix Malum was overthrown, we had the administration of Gokuni Wedei. And after Gokuni Wedei, we had the major conflict between Gokuni Wedei forces and Hissène Habré forces. Ultimately, we know that Hissène Habré was tried for conducting affairs that were contrary to human rights and was actually jailed. And of course, after that, we had Déby administration, and after Déby's death, his son Mahamat is now the effective ruler and has declared that he wants to contest the presidency. So these conflicts are born out of many contradictions. Contradictions born out of individuals who still want to be under the control of the French. And it must be remembered that even as we speak now in the year 2024, the French look at Chad very differently. Many of the forces that were expelled from Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso have relocated to Chad. And the recent conflict in the month of February that saw the death of the socialist leader in Jamena must therefore be seen in the context of the unseen hand of France trying to remain in effective control of Chad and therefore not allowing somebody that they do not control or somebody that they do not understand to become the president of Chad. And my view is that Mohammed is seen as somebody who will do France's bidding. And this is the last point for France in the Sahelian region, and they are going to fight for it. Remember, they have lost Guinea, they have lost Mali, they have lost Niger, they have lost Burkina Faso. They are going to fight for Chad. That, in my view, is the brief history and the circumstances surrounding the current Chadian situation. France is in the same station as the former colonial powers, whether it's the United Kingdom or Spain or France itself. These are former colonizers that are losing their grip. They are losing their sources of income. They are trying to be relevant in the modern day political chessboard. And therefore, when you see them doing the things that they are doing, making noise, you've seen, for example, President Macron saying that we must win in Ukraine. We cannot allow the Russians to win. We are going to make sure that they are defeated. A very unfortunate statement, if you ask me. If you say that this is a conflict between Ukraine and Russia and a foreign power which has a very dark historical past is saying we must win, it tells you that this is a proxy war. And these are the kicks of a dying horse. And you can see France is dying in many places in the world, not literally, but in terms of losing her political grip, in terms of losing her economic grip. And that is in itself indicative of a system that has too many internal contradictions, and those contradictions are beginning to undermine their confidence. So that even when they talk about Ukraine, they are also scrambling to retain their power in the Sahelian region, and they are losing it. There is even anecdotal evidence that some of the insurgencies that you now see in Burkina Faso, the insurgencies you see in Mali, in Guinea, are actually financed at the behest of France. And when they see a country like Chad continuing to behave as if it were a neo-colony, then they like it, and they are going to do everything to protect her for their benefit. Africa finds herself in a very interesting situation as we speak. And I'm speaking about Africa in the full knowledge that Africa is diverse, that Africa has different hands at play, that African countries have different historical experiences, that the British still want to be here, the Portuguese want to be here, the Belgians want to be here, the Americans, of course, want to be here, the Chinese want to be here, the Turks want to be here, everybody wants to be here. But France is a lot more desperate. Desperate because historically she has retained a stranglehold on her former colonies, the 14 of them, and she has retained that stranglehold through economics, so that even their economies and their currencies are denominated on the basis of what France says. Their resources are controlled from France. Their resources are exploited by the French. And therefore, what we see as a rebellion or a revolution in countries such as Guinea, such as Mali, such as Niger, such as Burkina Faso, if they are handled well, they are the beginning of a new wave of thinking, which is sending a clear message to the colonizer turned neo-colonizer that African countries now want to reorganize their governance in a manner that responds to the reality of their situations, in a manner that will enable them to be in charge of their economies, in a manner that will ensure that they are no longer satellite states. But that only depends on how those administrations midwife the transition between the military takeovers into the next phase where there'll be people participation. And it's not going to be easy because countries like France never say die. They are going to fight, they are going to ensure that the process of transition is not easy. They are going to have fifth columnists within those administrations trying to torpedo whatever good thing that is designed to happen. And it is incumbent upon African countries to therefore wake up and, in a manner of speaking, smell the coffee, to use that cliche and slang, and know that the sooner we embrace these changes, the safer Africa is. And I'm happy that, of course, ECOWAS did backtrack and have now said they are lifting the sanctions on the countries that had been sanctioned after the military takeovers. And it was not lost on me that indeed on the 13th day of February, the former president of Nigeria, General Yakubu Gowon, who was one of the founders of ECOWAS, wrote to all the heads of state and said, please lift these sanctions, engage these people. And almost a week later, or even earlier, all the heads of state met in Abuja in Nigeria and the sanctions were lifted.